to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast, Rachel. It is so good to have you on board.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I want to jump straight into your debut novel, Through Legends They Fall. If readers have a look at the category, we're looking at a horror fantasy genre. To the readers that don't know, do you want to explain horror fantasy and what they can expect from a genre like this?
It's definitely a genre blend. So take dark fantasy, grimdark, stuff like that. Anything that's bleak, and just add to it a very heavy, creeping atmosphere. You're definitely going to feel horror fantasy in your bones. And it's not a very, not popular, it's not a very populated genre. Usually when people ask for fantasy horror recs, there's about like 10 that are generally recommended because it's not a huge genre. It's very niche for us. So it's kind of difficult sometimes because it's usually people like their genres one way or the other. And then whenever you blend them together, it gets a little weird. But I personally like it. Feel like a lot of fantasy should have elements of horror, especially when you're dealing with creature fantasy or very dark or heavier themes than just, the usual, like, oh, we're fighting a war and and like there's romance and, and everything. Like it's a lot. Grimdark really fits the category a lot. But yeah, it's a spookier take on fantasy.
So, follow-up question then, because I have heard of Grimdark in the past, but like I just thought it was a book title or something. So, do you want to explain that and educate us of what Grimdark actually is?
Yeah, so, and I'm not 1000% sure on the source, but I believe that Grimdark came from a game from Warhammer, and it's categorized as a subject that is very bleak. Like, it doesn't really, you can have happy endings with Grimdark, it's just they're going to be a little twisted. So it's very bleak, very heavy, very dark subject matter.
When you say dark subject matter, I was chatting to another author friend recently, and we found that the more we write our novels, the more darker the nature is starting to become. Because please don't get me wrong, and I've said this on the podcast before, I am a basic bitch. I read forthwith like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But I am starting to look to, I almost want to say mind fucks in
Mhm.
fantasy worlds a little bit more. I
Yeah.
really need to figure out how to turn these reactions off. Um, but then,
You
yeah, I'm like, huh? And now
balloons.
what the fuck? Anyway, and it's just we're starting to, I almost want to say, expect that more and more. And like, I am beta reading for her at the moment, and she delivered a twist halfway through her manuscript where I was like, holy fuck, that is dark. But I was like, damn, that was good.
Yeah.
And like the older we're becoming, the more we're leaning towards that.
Yeah.
So another follow-up question. If you have, let's say, horror elements in your in your book, don't you freak yourself out writing it?
No. Not at all. So horror is my favorite genre across all media. I like horror games. But I only like horror video games whenever they actually give me a weapon. I'm not a big fan of like survival horror where you don't have one and you just have to hide the entire game, because I'm like, that is unrealistic. I would not run and hide under a table. I'm not doing that. And so I'm like, give me something, you know? But horror movies, horror TV shows, horror books, everything. I don't know what it was, but I guess grew up on it. My mom is a big fan of horror, and so that was a big influence. Like, I watched Alien as a kid, I don't know how many times, because it's her favorite movie. And so usually nothing really freaks me out. It's just something that I'm kind of used to now, because I'm very desensitized to it.
I have a confession to make. I haven't read Through Legend They Fall yet because I am a little bit of a scaredy cat. And now, like, I have to separate it.
Yeah.
Now, gross stuff doesn't freak me out. So the most popular, I almost want to say, horror fantasy that I can think about is Anathema, which has become a little bit mainstream. Were there gross elements in the story where they're describing decaying bodies. I'm like, okay, like that doesn't freak me out. Like,
Yeah.
great. I expect that in a fantasy at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but when you start going into the more psychological aspects of horror, that's where I'm like, whoa, okay. And I know you do that. I
Yeah.
definitely do that.
Yeah.
So if you had to describe through Legend Therefore, we've got part one and we've got part two. Is this a completed duology or can we expect more in the series?
I have one more planned for this particular storyline
Okay.
with
Cool.
Farron. Um, I'm about to start working on it. I'm very excited because so far the second one has been my favorite, but I really do think the third one is going to be a really fun wrap up. But it also opens all of these other channels
Yeah.
to more inside this universe, which was always my plan to begin with. I wanted it to be kind of like a multiverse type thing. But yeah, so I have one more planned with these characters, and then I have a little side quest story planned with some characters that are actually already in the book. They're just side characters, and so I'm eager to branch off to them.
So let's take it back a step because here I am getting ahead of myself, like asking about series. If you had to describe through Legend They Fall to your ideal reader, how would you put it?
I'd probably set it up as having vibes of like those kind of darker toned 80s fantasy. Legends with Tim Curry is a big one. There's the Conan movies, Red Sonja, stuff like that. Very battle heavy, very easy to follow magic systems because I don't do like too intricate of magic systems because it feels like a history book and you have to info dump and I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's just magic. It's just there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like it has those vibes of 80s fantasy and with a very heavy mental health rep and some mirroring of the situations in our current world.
I love that you reference bringing back the whole 80s fantasy thing because whether you love them or that you hate them, Stranger Things has been a big influence in, I almost want to say, our love for the 80s side of things again.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that one Kate Bush song? Stranger
Oh,
Things.
running up that hill or running
That
up the
one,
hill.
yeah.
Yeah.
The moment you started talking about 80s fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of started playing in my head.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, I know that when I start writing a book and or a new series, part of my process is I need to name, if not the first one, all of them from the get-go, because it's kind of like it helps me understand the content of the book as I'm writing it to have the title. So, my question to you is, what is your process like? How do you name your books, your series?
Mine is the opposite. Usually the name comes last
Oh,
because
okay.
it's my least favorite portion of the writing process is trying to name them because I'll always have the story, I have these characters, I have this world that I want to build, and then I'm like, what do I call it? And so all of my books so far, except for one work in progress that I have, all of them have been named last. And like
And
Legend went through 3 different names. But I've also worked on Legend for 20 years. So that yeah. So it went through a couple of name changes. It's my least favorite, but I usually because most of the time whenever I come up with a title, it kind of sounds like the name of an emo band song from the early 2000s, you know? It's
yeah,
like I ordered a pizza and to the office in the middle of the woods kind of thing, like those weird strung together titles. And so it's not my favorite process. It does take me a while and I obsess over it until I feel like at least for me I got it right.
and to add an additional step, which I know you will appreciate considering you're a designer as well, is that for me, I'm always thinking about how does this title look on a cover? Because the moment it gets too long, we know that it completely breaks the design and the
Yeah.
balance is completely fucked, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I I had an extremely long title for one of my previous books, and the moment the designer showed me like the first draft of the cover, I was like, "Guess I'm going back to the drawing board with that one because it's just not working." And
Yeah.
it's not a reflection of their design skills; it's just it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Uh,
can always tell the ones that's not gonna pan out.
I do ask every guest this question, and I'm going to ask you as well. What is your bookish hot take?
I guess it's more of like a mild take, but it's a preference that I feel like I'd like to see more of at least, is people reading books that are older, mainly from the 70s, 80s, 90s, stuff like that. And not just the like super popular, Dune and stuff like that. Reading more from an era that we don't really see a lot of people recommend in like on Book Talk or on Bookstagram. I see a lot of the same books recommended from the last 15 years. And there's a lot from, especially from like the 90s era, that I feel like not a lot of people talk about or bring up or maybe haven't even read, especially in the horror and thriller era. And so I don't know why, like, I don't see things like Jurassic Park wrecked as much as it should be, or Michael Crichton at least. Is it because his books are phenomenal? And
Wait.
it's interesting.
Wait, is Jurassic Park a book?
Yes.
You're fucking kidding me.
No. Listen, it's not only a book, it is a horror book. It is
Okay.
terrifying.
What? You have just knocked me speechless.
See? This is my bookish hot take.
Wow.
Yeah, it's by Michael Crichton. He did 2 of them. And let me tell you, they are a lot more than the movies. The movies, they're fantastic, but they're very summer blockbuster, popcorn kind of movies. But the books are horrifying and they're really, really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's not something that I see recommended a lot. And that's something that I think more people should put into their content.
I was chatting to a recent guest about this. She's urban fantasy like me. She focuses more on the gothic lit space. And I asked her, what do we think authors like Anne Rice? I mean, come on. Anne Rice is our most popular urban fantasy example, and she paved the way for urban fantasy authors like us. But I don't see her books recommended anywhere. Sure, we know Queen of the Damned, but like that wasn't
Exactly.
a stat movie. Like, let's be honest, we know
Yeah.
Interview with the Vampire, and now we know the series and Mayfair Witches are becoming popular again.
Mm-hmm.
But she has this whole backlist
Yeah.
of books that most people,
Huge.
I don't see them talking about it.
I have a massive collection that I have barely touched because she has so many. She has like a whole like werewolf series too that nobody
Okay.
Yeah, that I haven't read them yet, but yeah, that she did, and like not a lot of people recommend Anne Rice. I don't see Anne McCaffrey a lot with Dragon Riders of Pern. I don't see her recommended all that much, and which is insane to me because Anne McCaffrey is like one of the absolute staples of fantasy, and I don't see her that much. So that's another reason why I feel like people should go back to some of our like foundation authors and read their stuff as well. Because without them, we wouldn't have some of the people that we do today.
It's so interesting that you reference that because I had a guest on season 1 of the podcast, and she was talking about, and I'm going to use Frankenstein, Mary Shelley as an example, how authors like her paved the way for authors like us today with a lot of the concepts that she touched on in literature. It's stuff we're still writing about today. Sure, maybe it's a more modernized take or whatever the case may be, but to echo what you were saying there, we wouldn't be able to do what we do today without authors like that. But Rachel, that is not all that you're working on. I've seen on your page, you've also got something else up your sleeve, and it's called The Thiefman's Oath. Do you want to
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that one is very different from Legend. It's found family, D&D vibes, like a chaotic party of gremlins trying to stop something that they're way too unqualified to stop. And it's steampunk fantasy. There's a lot of humor elements to it as well, which is very different from Legend, and which was a lot of fun to do after something that's so heavy you know, and its themes, to do something that was a little more fun, even though the bad guy is absolutely atrocious. I think she's the worst person I've ever written in my entire life, but which is also still fun. And I'm very excited about that one to come out and for people to read it. I've gotten a couple of ARC reviews back for it, and so far it's been that it's fun and that my bad guy is atrocious. So I'm happy with that.
You mentioned before that I didn't touch on, just if we're comparing Legends and Thiefman's Oath. You have written the Legends, let's call it series, over the space of 20 years.
Yes.
So I almost want to go so far as to say this is maybe your heart, like the series that was on your heart that you really need to get out. Do you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about the inspiration for that and then the departure from that story to Thiefman's Oath?
Legend has evolved a lot. It has grown as I've grown. I started it when I was 15, and it was the same core elements, but it was nowhere near as it. I mean, it's like you said earlier, where it seems like as we get older, like we kind of get a little more cynical, and that's sort of how it developed with Legend. I grew up, and it didn't sound like a 15-year-old writing it anymore. So it evolved over time, and it really became almost like a therapy session in a way, writing it. And then with Thiefman's Oath, it was actually my quarantine book. I started it in 2020. Yeah. And I was watching a lot of comfort shows during that time. So a lot of like really fun animes and just like more superhero stuff, you know, like once again the found family elements and stuff like that. And so I think it was just a way for me to sort of just have like a fun time with everything that was happening with COVID and stuff like that. And it's a reflection. It's certainly a reflection of the time.
If we think about the books that we write, it is a creative extension of ourselves. I love that you touched on the therapy aspect, because for me, writing books is definitely therapy. Because let's say, I'll use a basic example. You have a disagreement with someone at your day job, and sure, maybe it goes one way at your day job, but you can take a version of that story,
Yeah.
put it into your story, and then control the narrative into a way that suits you. And I think there's something very special about that.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to chat commissioning character art for a second. There's a lot of, I almost want to say, discussion about this in the Bookstagram community. Some authors are commissioning large volumes, some authors aren't. I know I tend to fall on the side of less, and it's purely a budget concern.
Yeah.
Because I fully believe if I'm going to commission character art, I want to do it properly. But I've seen a lot of authors saying that you can't get ahead if you don't have a lot of character art and all those wonderful things. What is your take on needing character art as an author? And number two, what is your process for commissioning character art?
It's a tough question, because the first one, because it's sometimes you can put so much money into character art and then feed it into the algorithm and get nothing back. So it's not necessary, in my personal opinion. It is more of a something that the author wants, first and foremost. And it's very, you can utilize it in a lot of ways. So it is very beneficial. You can use it for merchandise, you can use it on posts, you can use it, you know, for really anything, as long as you get the commercial rights. But it's something that it's not necessary in a sense if you don't have it or if you can't afford it. Because as indie authors, you know, we're doing a lot of this ourselves. And so if it's just not in the budget, then it's something that I don't think that people should try to break the bank for. Because sometimes you can commission the most beautiful piece of artwork that you've ever seen and then try to feed it into the algorithm, and it does not pay for itself. But then sometimes you can get some that whenever you post it, it goes like wildfire and it winds up being what sells your book. So it's always just kind of 50-50.
I mentioned this in the previous episode. I've started posting some of my character art recently, and it's the guys. I've still got the girls coming up. And let me tell you, we're a bunch of horny teenagers on Bookstagram, because we are just like, oh my God, he's so hot. And we're all like pretending like we're not married women, without very happily with their husbands. So
Yeah.
that was the best insight. And for me, the only way I could justify the financial investment for my character art was by putting it in my box. Because I was like, to your point, I can't control the algorithm. So sure, I'm going to
Mhm.
check it out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
But my fallback is putting it into the book. So that way my reader feels like there is a value add. And I don't feel like I've just thrown a couple of $100 down the drain for an algorithm that
Exactly.
I can't control.
Yeah, exactly. For me personally, I usually don't have the money to invest in the artists that I want to, so I just do it myself. Artists absolutely set their price, and 99.9% of them are worth every penny, even if I can't afford that price. Definitely, though, look for artists that are in your price range that do the art style that not only fits your preference, but is going to fit your reader base preference and your book's preference. Or not preference, but your book's like theming. For anybody who might just be coming into this, make sure that you go with an artist that does not use generative AI. And just because of not only is it a morality thing or an ethical thing, you're not going to exclude anyone who does not want to engage with that type of content. Because people who don't care about AI, they don't care if you use it or not. But those who do have a very strong stance against it are not going to want to consume your content if you use it. So I would definitely advise people not to use an artist who uses AI, because there's a whole group, there's a whole core of readers there that you're going to wind up losing.
So off the back of that, I saw one of the designers that I use. She was posting this interesting take, which I didn't even know was a thing. She's like, "Hey guys, can you please stop feeding your covers?" So like, I'm talking your custom design covers now. Okay, like no AI used for the creation of it.
Yeah.
It's like, can you stop feeding your covers into AI to generate your social media? I was like, are we doing that now? Is that a thing? She goes on to explain that the readers, the authors now that she's seen do that, she's like, you're actually violating the clause of our terms of service because she doesn't use AI. And
Yeah.
she's like, and now you're feeding my work, and it is her work. I mean, sure, we may commission her, but it is her work. You're
Yeah.
now my work into AI. She's like, and
Mhm.
you're in direct violation of that. And I was like, fuck me. I'm a tech savvy person, but like, I never thought of doing this. I
Yeah.
didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, apparently, I didn't know it was a thing either. To be honest with you, I'm so on the anti AI spectrum that I don't see some of that stuff. I mean, I have a clause in all of my books that you are not supposed to feed any bit of this into AI.
Yeah.
That's awful, though. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, you guys, because that's also a really good way to kind of get yourself blacklisted from other artists, and you
Correct.
don't want to do that. Artists are your friend.
Correct. There was an author that I saw recently, and I cannot remember her name for the life of me. I remember the story, and like I can see everything in my head now. She had commissioned a beautiful, I almost want to say trailer of one of her books. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, we know in our space there are multiple template websites where you can buy a couple of video templates, and it's legit. You buy the template. Like this has got
Yeah.
nothing to do with AI. It's
Yeah.
actually a videographer went out, shot those templates, and has published it to a site. I forgot what the site is called. It's a green logo. I've used them in the past. So anyway, this author had to post receipts of said trailer video of where she paid for it.
Hmm.
And then she still had to remove it because people were just randomly accusing her of AI.
Yeah. Nope. I remember that.
It
It's one of
got
those things where people get, yes. But it's one of those things where people get performative and then they
yeah,
pat themselves on the back for it.
yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't do anything. Like, here are all of the things that she was promised, and even actual ingrained company policies, and you guys are still attacking her for it, and it was uncalled for.
What gets me so much about that is the people that are very obviously using AI get away scot-free, but then we go after the people that don't. That's really where I also
Yeah.
have an issue with it as well.
Hmm.
And I think I saw another author talk about this. The moment you put yourself out there into the author space, you become a public figure. Now, whether you are a SJM or like on our level is irrelevant. The fact is, we're all public figures.
Yeah.
And sometimes readers have this, oh, they have a say in our lives and what we do. And we're like, no, you really
Yeah.
don't.
You don't. You don't pay these bills.
And sure, it's your right to, hey, if you want to go and trash one of my books, like that is your God-given right. Feel free to
Exactly. Yeah.
but you don't get to, for example, pop into my DMs and tell me, oh, I'm a shit human being because you think I've used AI for something when you have absolutely zero evidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a boundary that needs to just become a little bit firmer there. You kind of touched on this in your hot take, but I do want to ask, name one fantasy book, and it can be indie or trad, that you believe deserves far more love than it's been getting from the community.
Definitely the Seven Waters trilogy. I'm trying to remember how to say her last name because I don't want to. Marie. It's Juliette Marie. I think it came out in the early 2000s. I found it in a bin, in just a book bin that was a random like church donation that my sister had. And I was like, what is this? And because it was definitely sticking out like a sore thumb in the other donations. But I picked it up, read the first one, fell in love with it, immediately went to our little bookstore in the mall in the early 2000s and got the other two. And it's just so it's like historical fantasy with fae, but they're so good. And I love and it follows the women of one particular family through all three books. And they're phenomenal. And I really wish that in especially like the romantasy scape, which is so dominated by like three different names. I wish that it was more prominent because they definitely deserve a lot more recognition and love. And I don't see them as much, and that's a shame.
But like, I just look at how you light up describing that series and how excited you get, and it's just for me, if that doesn't sell a book, then I don't know what does.
I'm not even like a big romantasy reader,
Yeah.
but that whole series right there is I love it so much. Especially the second one. If you decide to pick it up, the second one is the best.
So since you're on the topic of romantasy, that's just kind of opened up into one of my next questions I have for you. Fantasy kind of, I almost want to say, set the stage for us to start using tropes a lot in how we market our work to readers. Now,
Yes.
I've been to camps of readers where some readers don't want to know tropes because they think it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
Some readers, they won't pick up a book if they don't know what tropes that they're going to get. A popular one that I know is the one horse. And I'm just like, I don't give a shit. Tell me the story. Like, that's where I'm at. So
Yeah.
so I would love to know from you, what is a fantasy trope that you love and which one are you completely over?
I love a good found family or a reluctant hero. Those are always like I gravitate towards more. I also am a little bit of a enemies to lovers slut, just a little bit. When it's done right.
Right. Yeah.
When it's not, man, I hate her, but I also can't stop thinking about her. In like the first chapter, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not. I want enemies. I want a bad guy. And so those are some favorites. I'm really not too picky whenever it comes to tropes. I guess my biggest one is I don't like miscommunications.
Same. Same.
Yeah, I'm just like, just say it, just talk it out. Just
Yeah.
they're right there. Just say the words. Or like people listen to a conversation on the other side of a door and they only catch like the last sentence of it and then they are all like and they run away. And I'm like, turn around, go back.
Like,
Yeah, it's definitely it.
I fully agree with you there. I think even in my 20s, I didn't understand the miscommunication trope because I was like, just
Yeah,
open your fucking mouth. It's not that hard.
exactly.
Easy. And I'm just like, you're literally letting the love of your life walk away because you're too, like, I don't know, big to say something. Well, then you know what? You don't deserve it. That's my take. So
Yeah,
I fucking hate that. For me, miscommunication, instant DNF. Don't
yeah.
care if you are the next big thing. Boom, I'm done. Rachel, I want to bring it back to Through Legend They Fall a little bit. One of the biggest things that I took away from your page is that you have a lot of mental health inclusion. And I would like to know from you, what do you think us as authors can do to include more of this, I almost want to say, representation in a way that honors people and doesn't piggyback off it for shock value?
If you are someone that experiences any mental health issues or neurodivergency and you want to include it in your books, just write from a truthful space, as it can be potentially painful, but it also helps you work through certain issues. And so if it's something that you experience yourself and you want to give it to a character, just write from the heart. That will give you the most authentic representation. If you don't, if you're very neurotypical, but you want to be more inclusive of the neurospicy community, not only do your research about the way that certain issues affect people, but also talk to people within the community. If you have to hire sensitivity readers for it, then you can, because nothing sucks kind of like having somebody try to represent the mental illness that you have, but they don't have it and they don't get it right. And it just winds up being a parody. So I would definitely recommend to talk to people that have the issues that you want to touch on or that you want to spread awareness about and get their insight, because it will be invaluable.
We have Through Legendary Fall, part 1 and part 2. We also know that you're working on, let's call it part 3, for the sake of this podcast, at a later stage. You also have The Thiefman's Oath coming out. Tell me, what can we expect next from you in your author career, as if that isn't enough?
So Thiefman's Oath is a 4-part series. So there will be, I have the first 2. I don't want to call it part 1 because the other one's called part 1. But so the first one is coming out in 2 weeks. And then I do have the second one already written. It needs edits, which usually take me a little while. But it should be out sometime within the next, say, probably 6 or 7 months. And then I have 2 more left in that series to write, on top of the third one for Through Legend They Fall. And I also have a, I'm going to do, and I'm very excited about it because it should not take that long. And normally my writing process, if I start from scratch and I write a big fantasy book, it takes me a year. It's just, I'm not one of those people that's blessed with pumping things out in like 2 months. I wish I was. I wish I was. That is a superpower. But I do have a book of short stories that I'm currently working on. They're all going to be mostly horror. I think I might do 2. That one's horror and one is fantasy. Because you don't see a lot of fantasy short story books. And I think that would be interesting because I would like a little pocket adventure every once in a while, Just kind of like if I have an hour, then I can just go on like a quick little side quest and then be like, oh, that was fun. Set it to the side. So, but I do have my horror short stories, which I'm very excited about because they're all very fun. They're very fun, like little quirky horror stories, and I'm excited for that.
I love that you reference that you can't just smash out a book as well, because I thought I was being a fucking weirdo. Because, like, I was actually chatting to my editor about this. So I have a lot of rounds of edits, like a lot, because, like, in one round, I'll be like, okay, this is a round to get the plot right. Fuck the grammar, fuck all of that stuff. The plot needs to be right. Okay, the next round is going to be about making sure the dialogue is right. And the next round will be about the weather and the description or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And recently we've introduced I call it the final read through and formatting stage. Oh God, these fucking AI reactions. And to give you an idea, in this phase, I can add anything like an extra 10,000 words to the manuscript, because I'll read it with the idea of I could publish this right now as is, no issue. But like, I want to tweak this word. This word maybe isn't a bit right. Like, it's that real finesse. And my editor and I were chatting about how I need to do it in these small little increments. I cannot just write like 50 chapters at once and call it a day. I just don't have that kind of attention span. So I just love that someone else is there with me on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my goal usually is 1 chapter a week. But also I cannot underwrite to save my life. Everything everything is 100K or more in word count. And because I can't shut up. Because I'm like, wait, no, this needs to be in there. This is important. And so that's also, I really wish that I could crank out like just 75K standalones and just, keep them moving. And I can't. And I wish that I could. And those who can, that is a superpower.
Well, thank you,
Um,
because I one of the things that I keep trying to challenge myself is up my word count, because I tend to get to the point. Sometimes I can embellish a little bit,
yeah.
and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to spend a whole page telling you how his eyes are blue. Like, they're fucking blue. Get over it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, like for me, one of the things I've had to do is find the balance between upping my word count into the more 75K and up. I'm not
Yeah.
there yet, but I'm getting there slowly but surely. But in a way that makes sense, because again, I was having this debate with my editor. She's like, you can add this to the story to up your word count. She's like, but it doesn't really further the story you're telling. And I'm
Yeah.
like, then I'm not doing it, because I would rather sit with a shorter story that makes sense rather
Hmm.
than adding words for the sake of it to meet some arbitrary word count goal, you
No,
know?
I completely agree. Every book is the length that it needs to be.
Yeah, 100%. So,
Yeah.
Rachel, if someone is listening and they're like, I love Rachel's vibe, I want to connect, I want to support her, what is the best way to do that?
Honestly, sharing content. It's free, 100% free. If you want to purchase a book, that really helps because all of the money that I make off my books usually turns around and goes right back into the books in some way or another. But free ways that you can help is sharing content, engaging with content, because the more that you engage with it, the more that the algorithm will keep you in a visible space. I hate that we have to fight with algorithms, but it's the way that it is. And so following, sharing, commenting, if you enjoy my work, please let me know. If you don't enjoy my work, you can also let me know. That's still engagement. I'll take it. But, just really finding me on social media, which I'm not on a lot of. It's my main hub is just mostly Instagram. But yeah, like real just engagement
Yeah.
and having human interactions is the best way to help support.
So just to validate what you are saying there, Instagram has this new little feature for us creators
Hmm.
where, let's say, we post a post, and the more people watch past, and this could be a carousel as well, not just a reel, the
Yeah.
more people watch past 3 seconds, the more people start seeing our post. Instagram's algorithm starts recognizing, hey, let me show this to more people. So you're 100% correct that engagement is exactly the kind of thing that helps us get our names out there, because I mean there are a shit ton of fantasy authors and other
Yes.
creators, and
Yes.
when I don't write popular genres being romantasy, so we need to compete with that as well. So
Yes. We have to fight through the oversaturation. We have to fight through just the algorithms that constantly change and that they don't tell us how to work. We have to figure out on our own. And it's just, there's a lot of struggles there. And some people just don't realize how much that they can help. And it really is just engagement.
And I will also say, please review your indie author books. Review your goddamn books, please. Even if it's just
Yes.
a rating helps as well. Or you can even just say, good book, or I hated the book, or whatever. Everything helps, and a review is for free, especially if you're paying for a book. You deserve to review that book. It helps so much. I don't think people realize what a struggle it is to get reviews, and people just don't want to commit to reviews at all.
Yes.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
here's your reminder.
Exactly.
Rachel, it has been such a vibe speaking to you. I am so excited about your career. I love seeing what you're getting involved in. I love that you're challenging the norm and you're just not conforming. I think that's fucking phenomenal, and we need more of that out there.
Thank
I
you.
will pop your episode. I will pop your descriptions into the episode link. So if people want to connect with you, they just got a bit of an easier way of doing that. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll chat soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you. You too.